everyone, I'm Rebecca from the Stitchery. I'm here today with a dye video and knitting video for you. I want to start doing more knitting content for my channel because I'm hoping that if I practice in, preparation for the videos, then I will eventually be as fast at knitting as I am at, say, crocheting, if that's even possible. Anyway, what I want to start with is doing a bunch of bulky hats, each with different stitch patterns, so that I can learn different stitches and just kind of try to ingrain it in my brain that way. So for the dye work, I have 2 skeins of Darn Good Yarn Bliss Superwash Chunky Merino Wool yarn that I had already dyed in a previous video. I used them as like dye mops just to finish off the dye pot, but it wasn't actually enough to make a hat. I did attempt it. So I have 5 more skeins of that, and also 1 skein of block printed Sari Silk ribbon yarn. I figure it's the same weight, so I might as well dye it as well. It has a little bit of design. Anyway, we're going to use the jar method. So I'm going to get jars set up and put a little bit of dye in each jar, heat up some water. It'll be in time lapse, so you'll be able to see that. It's my first time dyeing yarn in this apartment, so that's a little bit exciting. So yeah, there's not really much more else for explanation. I just have to dye the yarn, and then we'll talk about the knitting part after the yarn is dry and ready to go. So I'll go get set up and I'll be right back. Alright, so I have all of the yarns already caked up, and if you've seen my Surella opening video, then you pretty much know what I'm going to be doing. I need to at least attempt to start these hats on double pointed needles, although these are really long for a hat, so we'll see how that goes. But I wasn't really sure how many stitches to cast on, so I did a ton of research, and this particular yarn, when I tested it, was like 4.5 wraps per an inch. On their website, they call it a jumbo number 7 yarn. And if you look at charts of how many stitches to cast on for a hat for one type of yarn or another, anyway, those charts always stop at number 6. So I couldn't actually find any specific instructions on this yarn. I mean, it's 23 yards per 50 grams. That is not much. I thought maybe Malabrigo Rasta would be close, but that one is a 90 yard skein for 150 grams. So it's, 30 yards per 50 grams. So it's a little bit not, like, it's just slightly thinner than this. Anyway, the recommended needle size for this is US 17, which I don't have any. I have 15s, so we're just gonna have to hope that works. I decided to start with 40 stitches, and if that ends up being too big, I will unravel it and try again, basically. So this is as far as I got with that. In terms of colors, I was thinking I would use these together, and I would use these together, and then whatever's left over, if anything's left over, I use this. I was not planning on making red. I thought I had grabbed the fuchsia because I was going to do pink and then rhodium and then jacquard fuchsia, and unfortunately I picked fire red instead. So we've got jacquard fire red, jacquard pink, gay wool rhodium, and then this is a little bit, I think, of the fuchsia. This is just leftover, like this I used to mop up some leftover dye from a previous project. So I don't remember exactly what that was. And again, this is just leftover dye that I mopped up, so no clue what that one is, but this one's Jacquard Turquoise, and this one is Dharma Ultra Blue. I do still have the ribbon yarn that I dyed as well as the ribbon yarn that I dyed when I did the alpaca dye video, but those are very different texture than these, even though they should work up at roughly the same weight. So for the time being, I've set them aside. If I need to add more yarn, if it looks like I'm gonna run out before I can finish hats, then I'll add them in, because, you know, might as well use what I have instead of buying more of this. But I don't want to use those unless I absolutely have to. All right, let's start with these. Probably gonna do top of the hat in this, stop, do stripes, and then finish the hat with this. Okay, I'm gonna at least attempt to start these on double pointed needles. It has been a very, very long time since I've used these, and I feel like they're so long, but I'll do my best. So, if I'm doing 40 stitches, I want to start a little smaller and then increase up to 40. So I'm going to do 5 on each and then increase 1 stitch per needle. And I go around until I get up to 40. I think that makes sense. All right. 5 on there. Of course, it really only makes sense if this actually works. I feel like I'm white knuckling this. I'm so nervous. All right. Oh, you can't even see what I'm doing. Eee. This is annoying. All right, 1 more needle to go. Okay, I think they're all pointing the right way. How do I do this again? Right now I just need this one to stop moving around on me. That'd be great. Okay. Oh, okay, I remember. Take that off there. Probably after I get this increased a bit, I will switch it to the circulars, but I think I'm going to change the camera around because this is unbearable. One moment. All right, that's a little bit more comfortable. I was, I'm really far away from the desk, so I was having a really hard time getting it in the shot. All right, so see if I can do this or not. It has been such a long time. Okay. trying to do an increase here, but I'm not sure that I'll be successful. All right. That increase part's so tight. I don't like that. Okay. Did I just lose a stitch? That doesn't... It looks awful loose in there. Yeah, I think I did. All right, cool. I added it back in, sort of. This video is gonna be like 2 hours of me talking to myself while doing a horrible job knitting, isn't it? Great. No. Great. I don't know if you saw that, but a needle fell out and I lost the whole thing. No. Alright. I think I'm just going to do this one on circulars and stitch the top up, and I will use a thinner yarn to try to practice double pointed needles because this is not going great. All right, I love these. Fun, fun, fun. This is what I signed up for, though. I wanted to learn to knit. All right, it's 40. I picked 40 because for the number 6 yarn, the stitch count for knitting that was like 48 to 52, and I figured proportionally 40 would make sense for a number 7, but I'm not 100% on that. So if this goes badly, you will find out, because I'm being completely honest in these videos. I don't really know what I'm doing. I want to know what I'm doing. Let me adjust the camera again. It's a weird shot, but I don't know how else to let you see what I'm doing, and my arms are killing me trying to make it so you can see what I'm doing. The first row is always super tight for me. I know it's because of the way I cast on, and there are other ways of casting on that are looser. I do not know how to do them yet. I guess that's another thing for me to learn in this series. I don't know, it's good to get some practice in. Maybe I will be a little bit more competent by the time I'm done. I want especially to be able to knit with super bulky yarn to just make super fast projects for when I'm a little burnt out on the more complicated stuff I'm doing in my other hobbies. That's pretty much all I want knitting for. I want it to be like a palette cleanser, if I can ever get to that point. I've probably said this before, but technically speaking, I learned how to knit first when I was in elementary school. There was this guidance counselor who would take some of the girls who like didn't really fit in, and she'd have, I don't know what to call them, I guess sort of like tea parties, because she would give us tea, and she also kind of called it a book club. But after a while, she didn't like how we were reacting to the book club part. She didn't think we were like absorbing it or something, so she changed it to teaching us how to knit. But I never got any farther than learning the knit stitch. I could only do the knit stitch. She didn't teach me how to purl or cast off or anything. And then in high school, I learned to crochet. And I kind of picked up knitting again during quarantine. But I also started weaving at that point, so didn't get super far with knitting because weaving was way more interesting. I'm gonna just pick it up occasionally and try again to get somewhere with it. Maybe this time it'll stick. Although I am proud of myself that I don't have to look up tutorials on how to purl every time I want to purl now. I can purl on command. I used to have to rewatch a YouTube video every time I wanted to purl. That's progress, I guess. Alright, I guess I should go to time lapse because otherwise this really will be like 2 hours long of me fighting with my knitting needles. So, one moment. While looking around for a stitch marker that would be big enough for the needles I was using, I realized I did have a set of size 17 interchangeables and a cord that is hat size. So I switched over to the right size needle. And it's okay for this top part to be a tighter knit because this is just all going to get stitched shut when the hat's done anyway, so it doesn't really matter. I couldn't find a actual stitch marker that was the right size, so I'm just going to use a hair tie. Whatever works, you know? Alright, so I can get back to knitting now. I just wanted to give that little update. Alright, so I was originally going to do a lot more in this video than I did, but it's already getting super long and my editing software can't handle too much longer before it just dies. So I'm going to finish this one up and then we will just do like a part 2 for me to finish the hats with this yarn. But got 2 hats done. So this is the first hat. And I think this one actually came out better than the other one, mainly because I was only working with 2 colors. The more colors I work with, the worse it gets. So the seam is right here. You can see a little bit of a jog right here where I finished it, and the colors, anyway. And there's also this funky bit right here. I'm still learning how to deal with the seams, so that's a new thing for me. Crochet doesn't really do that necessarily, so that is going to take some work, but it is very soft. I do like that part. This is hat 2. This one has a lot of color changes and the inside is an absolute disaster, so we're going to pretend that doesn't exist. But in the future I am going to have a video purely where I work on trying to figure out how to make the colors line up better, because it's not something I've done before, and that's going to be just a whole video in and of itself. That said, the rest of the hat I'm reasonably happy with. The top part, I didn't have the right size double pointed needles in metal. I only had them in wood, so I couldn't really do the top the way I wanted to, but I did start a little smaller and then increase just so I would have a little bit more of a curve at the top. So I think that part worked well. I'm happy with that. So I did try one more time, because I have enough of this yarn to make another hat. I did try one more time with those wooden double pointed needles, and it was more successful this time, but it still did not go well and I gave up. I did, however, do this hat, the beginning part, using double pointed needles because I have some metal ones, and I got that nice increase seam on 4 corners sort of thing. I just have to stitch up this top part. So this hat's actually going really well. This is the merino tencel yarn that I hand spun and then hand dyed. I had a video about that. I will link to it below. So yeah, this hat will be done probably in a couple more sessions of knitting because I'm already on ribbing. I did order more double pointed needles. These are the ones I have that I like. I was using them in the car and practicing and playing with this. I would have filmed it, but it's a little difficult to film in the car. So I'll have another video coming up where I get my new sets of double pointed needles and we talk about them, and we will use the ones I bought to use the last of that super chunky yarn and make a hat with those. And that'll just be its own standalone thing. So that is about everything, I think. I'm gonna finish this video up because, like I said, my editing software hates me, and I will see you all again soon.